Johnny Talk Sports here with my NFL Mock Draft 3.0. And ever since I uploaded my 2.0, there has been countless amounts of drama that has unfolded in this NFL offseason. We have had Amari Cooper get traded to the Browns. We have had Tom Brady come out of retirement and say he is playing this season. We have had Devontae Adams get traded to the Raiders. We have had Tyreek Hill get traded to the Dolphins. And we've had Matt Ryan get traded to the Colts. So we've had, again, countless drama, just like before my 2.0. There was drama that unfolded leading up into the days of my 2.0. And with the way the NFL offseason is going at this point, I would not be surprised if about a month and a half from now, we get a report that Bill Belichick is going to retire at the end of the 2022 season. It would not surprise me with the way this NFL offseason has been unfolding. So without further ado, let's get to my NFL Mock Draft 3.0. The Jaguars are on the clock with the number one pick. And I think this is the first time in a while that the first pick in the draft isn't known at this point. I mean, it's been known before draft night who the number one pick is going to be. It's been that way for some time. And I think this is the first time since maybe 2013 where the number one pick isn't really known. So nobody really knows yet, but I think maybe with leading up into the NFL draft, as we're still about a month away, I think maybe the week before the draft, maybe we might get some rumors and reports on who the Jaguars could be leaning towards. But I am going to have the Jaguars taking Evan Neal, the offensive tackle of Alabama, just like I've had for the previous two mock drafts. And the beginning of the mock draft, I feel like it's going to be somewhat close, if not the exact same as my first two mocks. The Lions with the second pick, I think they would take Aiden Hutchinson if the Jaguars don't take him at number one. So are the Lions with Aiden Hutchinson, the Michigan prospect staying in Michigan, a Dan Campbell pick, a prospect Dan Campbell's going to love. Third overall pick, the Texans are on the clock. And the Texans, they also acquired a first-round pick from the Browns as Deshaun Watson got traded to the Browns to add to the drama that has been unfolding these last couple of weeks. But the Texans, I have them go with Kayvon Thibodeau, the edge rusher out of Oregon. As I established in my 2.0, if the Jaguars don't take Hutchinson or Thibodeau with the first pick, then the Lions would have their choice between Hutchinson or Thibodeau, and the Texans would take where the Lions pass on. So in this scenario, once again, the Lions took Hutchinson, so the Texans, they settled for Thibodeau. So the first three picks of this mock, it's the exact same as the first two. But I think we're going to start seeing some changes here. Or should I say we are going to see some changes coming up. The fourth pick, the Jets are on the clock, and I think they draft based off of need at this point. But I do think that they could benefit from Kyle Hamilton, but I think they pass on him. I have him going with Akeem Ikwonu out of NC State. They have been upgrading their offensive line in the last couple of NFL drafts, but I still think it needs quite a bit of improvement, especially when you have a franchise quarterback in Zach Wilson that you need to protect. And we saw in the Super Bowl where Joe Burrow was getting harassed constantly in that second half. I'd say Joe Burrow getting harassed really the entire this past season, the entire year he was getting harassed. And I think it's evident that teams are going to start wanting to take some offensive tackles pretty early in the draft because we saw what happened in the Super Bowl. We saw what happened, I'd say, in the playoffs in general, or even the season in general. The fifth pick, the Giants are on the clock, and they are committed to Daniel Jones being QB1 in 2022. But the Giants' top need is an offensive tackle, and Charles Cross is on the board. Even Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa. But I think the Giants, they take the best player available at this point in the draft, which is Kyle Hamilton. And I think the more that Kyle Hamilton slips out of maybe the top 3, I think the bigger of a steal he gets. Well, a bigger steal that he is. And the bigger the steal that a team will get. So I think Kyle Hamilton goes 5th overall to the Giants. Maybe not their biggest need, not the biggest priority, but the best player available. It doesn't really hurt to take the best player available at any point in the draft. With the 6th pick, the Panthers are on the clock. And I think they go quarterback. I think they go with Malik Willis, the quarterback out of Liberty. I think what we've seen so far with the combine, Malik Willis is the best quarterback. Early on in the process, it looked like it was Kenny Pickett, but now I would personally lean it towards being Malik Willis. And I think the Panthers, they go QB. They take Malik Willis. 7th pick, the Giants are back on the clock, and they do indeed go at Charles Cross, the offensive tackle at Mississippi State. So far, I'd say this mock draft, a little bit similar to 2.0, but I don't think it is completely. I mean, I still have the top 3 the same. Panthers go Malik Willis. And there's been talks about how no quarterback in this draft class is worth taking in the top 10. But I don't think that's the case. I think a big reason why people aren't really talking about the quarterbacks that much, think they're not worth the top 10 pick, is because they're not the most talked about thing in this year's draft. Most talked about thing is the edge rushers, especially in Hutchinson and Thibodeau. And Kyle Hamilton's also talked about. The offensive tackles are talked about. So I think we're just being overshadowed by defense and offensive tackles pretty early on in this draft. Now we have the 8th pick, and that belongs to the Falcons. Now the Falcons, they just traded away Matt Ryan. Calvin Ridley is suspended for an entire year. Russell Gage signed with the Buccaneers in free agency. So the Falcons' top receiver at this point is Olamide Zaccheaus. If the season started tomorrow, the number 1 receiver for the Falcons would be Olamide Zaccheaus. And I know the Falcons, they have no defense, they have no offensive line, but I think that the 8th overall pick will be taken by the Falcons. I don't think they trade down. I think they go wide receiver. But I'm down to 2 different guys who it would be for the 8th pick. I think it would either be Drake London or Treylon Burks. But Treylon Burks, he didn't exactly live up to his potential at the combine, but I don't think the combine really means that much. I mean, I would definitely be okay with the Falcons taking Burks, but I think with what we've seen, I think that they would go with Drake London out of USC. Now the Seahawks are on the clock, and I think that they are going to go with a pick that may not be the best pick, but I think it's a smart pick. And I think they go with Ahmad Sauce Gardner, the cornerback out of Cincinnati. Now, this is rebuilding mode for the Seahawks. And what better way to rebuild than try to build up the Legion of Boom once again? The second coming of the Legion of Boom. And what better way to start that mission than to take what might be the best corner in this draft class in Ahmad Gardner, who didn't allow a single touchdown in his college career. And Bryce Young knew how good Sauce Gardner was. So he was afraid to throw it his way in the semifinal in the college football playoff this past year. With the 10th pick, I think the Jets, I think they go with Trayvon Walker, the edge rusher out of Georgia. Now, it's possible that Walker, he may end up being a top 5 pick. I've seen some people have a case for him being the number 1 overall pick. But the Jets getting Walker, somebody that is just coming off of a national championship, that has a championship pedigree, that has played in big games in his college career. Because that is what struggling franchises need. They need some college prospects that's played in big games. They have a championship pedigree. And the Jets will get just that with Trayvon Walker. The 11th pick, the Washington Commanders are now on the clock. And I think they go wide receiver. And I think they're going to go with Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State. I thought in the 1.0 that it could have been Jameson Williams in this slot, potentially a target for the Commanders 11, but I feel like the injury that he suffered in the championship game, I think he's going to fall a little bit, but there's no way that I think he falls outside of the top 20. But I think he's going to fall a little bit, but this receiving class is stacked. And we've seen a lot of receivers taken in the first round in the last couple draft classes that have already made an impact, or they have the potential of making a big impact. Like we saw Justin Jefferson make an impact already. We've seen Jamar Chase make an impact. CeeDee Lamb, I'd say, has made somewhat of an impact, but I think he's got potential to be a top 10 receiver in the league at some point. I think Jerry Jeudy has potential. And I think a couple of these receivers that get taken pretty early on, I think they're going to have potential to make an immediate impact in the NFL. The Vikings are on the clock, and I think they're going to go with Jordan Davis out of Georgia. I think they pick up one of their biggest needs. But I feel like if Kyle Hamilton slipped out of the top 10, I think the Vikings, I think they would take him. But they take the best player available as far as their big needs. The Texans are now on the clock, and I have them going with Derek Stingley Jr., the cornerback out of LSU. And Derek Stingley had a phenomenal freshman season with the Tigers, but he was kind of overshadowed with the upperclassmen of the LSU Tigers that year. He didn't really talk about that much, and he didn't get the recognition he deserved. And early on in the mock draft process, Derek Stingley was a top 5 pick. So the Texans getting Derek Stingley Jr. here at 13, I think that's a massive steal for the Texans. Number 14, the Ravens are on the clock, and I think they go with Jermaine Johnson, the edge rusher out of Florida State. I think this is the best player available as what their needs are. I could see it being Andrew Booth Jr., but I do think if Sauce Gardner or Derek Stingley Jr. is still available at pick 14, I think they would consider making the move on one of those two. But I think Jermaine Johnson is the pick here for Baltimore. So now this is where the draft gets a bit interesting. The Philadelphia Eagles, they have back-to-back picks here. And they have another pick before the end of the top 20. So they have picks 15, 16, and 19 coming up. And they have a big opportunity here to be big winners of draft night or the entire draft weekend if they draft smart here. I think for starters, they need to go wide receiver. And I think with Jameson Williams still available, I think they make the move. I'm sure there are some Eagles fans out there that probably don't want to take a wide receiver in the first round. But Devontae Smith, he's one of those receivers I think has some potential. And I think Jameson Williams, I think the Eagles, they get a steal here. Despite his injury back in January, I think the Eagles get a massive steal on Jameson Williams. Then I think they go corner, and I think they go with the best one available here, and that is Andrew Booth Jr. out of Clemson. And the Eagles will have a pick 2 picks from now. The Chargers are on the clock, and I think they go with their biggest need at this point, and that is an offensive tackle. So they go with Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa. The Saints, I think they also go wide receiver here because there is talks about Michael Thomas potentially being traded. And they've already brought back Jameis Winston for next season. So let's get Jameis Winston a weapon. And I think the weapon that the Saints will get is Treylon Burks out of Arkansas. And I'm wondering what the over-under is for wide receivers taken in the first round, because I think we could easily get at least maybe about 6 or 7 that get taken in round 1. And the Eagles are back on the clock after the Saints take Treylon Burks. With the 19th pick, I think the Eagles, I think they address their need at edge rusher. And I think they go with David Ojabo out of Michigan. Now, David Ojabo, he suffered an injury at his pro day earlier this week. But this kind of reminds me of Jeffrey Simmons with the Titans a few years ago, that they didn't mind that he injured his ACL. And I think the Eagles, I think that they're addressing their needs here. And I think this is going to be a great pick for the Eagles to take Ojabo at 19. Number 20, the Steelers are on the clock. And I think they're going to actually go quarterback. I personally am not sure if Mitch Trubisky is that guy. But just in case, I think they go with Kenny Pickett. And I think we're going to see a nice quarterback battle between those two. Plus, Kenny Pickett stays in Pittsburgh. The 21st pick, I think the Patriots, I think they go linebacker here. And I think they take Nakobe Dean out of Georgia. The Patriots, they address one of their bigger needs. And they take a linebacker, particularly Nakobe Dean, that has championship pedigree. I mean, the Patriots, they're a team that has championship pedigree, but nothing without Tom Brady so far. 22nd pick, the Packers are on the clock, and they will definitely, with this pick in particular, they will go the wide receiver. Because right now, who was Aaron Rodgers of the football to? But I think they go with Chris Olave, the wide receiver at Ohio State. As once again, another wide receiver is off the board, and this was the Packers' biggest need. The Packers were promising Aaron Rodgers that they were going to do everything they can to make him satisfied. Well, they traded Devontae Adams, who Aaron Rodgers said at some point last season, Devontae Adams is the best receiver that he's ever played with. And the fact that he lost his number 1 weapon, he lost his number 2 weapon in Valdez-Scantling to the Chiefs. So the Packers, they need to get another number 1 option for Rodgers, and they get that in Chris Olave. 23rd pick, the Cardinals are on the clock. And I think this is a simple, I'd say it's a needs that they're going to go with. And I think what Trent McDuffie, the cornerback out of Washington. And I think Trent McDuffie isn't somebody that's being really talked about as much, because Washington, they had one of the best pass defenses in the entire country last season. I think Trent McDuffie, I think, is going to be a solid fit for the Cardinals. 24th pick, the Cowboys are on the clock. And I think that they are going to go with George Karlaftis out of Purdue. The Cowboys, they address one of their biggest needs, and probably even their biggest need. As the Cowboys defense, they did show some improvement last season, but still not enough improvement to solidify themselves as one of the better defenses in the NFL. 25th pick, the Bills are on the clock, and I think they are going to go with Devontae Wyatt out of Georgia. the Bills, they only need a couple more pieces left of this puzzle for them to be Super Bowl contenders. I mean, they already are, but they still need a couple more pieces to get over that hump. And the Bills are getting started with by taking Devontae Wyatt. 26th pick, I think the Titans, I think they're going to go with the best player available as far as what their needs are. So I think they'll go with Devin Lloyd, the linebacker out of Utah. And I think I've had the Titans taking Devin Lloyd, at least in one of the previous two mock drafts, but I'm not quite sure. The 27th pick, the Buccaneers are on the clock. And I think they're going to go with the best player available as far as what their needs are, which, in my opinion, it's Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa. As the Big Ten, they do a really good job of building up offensive linemen. And Iowa, as part of the Big Ten, they do just that. The Packers are on the clock with the 28th pick. And I think that they are going to, I think they're going to go with Kaiir Elam out of Florida. The Packers defense has had their fair share of issues. I mean, Kevin King was a massive problem for the Packers. He has been in the past. But they are getting a talented corner in Kaiir Elam. The 29th pick, the Chiefs are on the clock. And this pick is an obvious one. And based off of reports, at least, it's an obvious one. But Sky Moore, the wide receiver out of Western Michigan, ever since Tyreek Hill got traded to the Dolphins, the Chiefs, they've been having their eyes on Sky Moore, as it has been reported earlier in the week that they were interested in him by taking him with the 29th pick. And I think they will do just that. Now they're back on the clock with the 30th pick. And I think they're going to go with Daxton Hill, the safety out of Michigan. The Bengals are on the clock, and they need to address their offensive line. They've been doing that in free agency. But what's adding one more offensive tackle? And I think they go with Bernhard Raymond out of Central Michigan. And to wrap up the first round, the Lions are on the clock. And I think that they are going to, I think they're going with Jahan Dotson out of Penn State. I think that Dotson is going to be a nice compliment for Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had a phenomenal end to his rookie season. And adding in Jahan Dotson, I think it's a nice compliment. So that will do it for my NFL Mock Draft 3.0. So here's just the rundown of who all got drafted in this mock draft. So like, share, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, have a wonderful day.